Rimuru back 3000 year as a fifth true dragon. By Elite X0. During the final battle against Feldway, he had inevitably sent Rimuru to the end of time and space. After Feldway send Rimuru to the end of time and space, Rimuru decide to find a way to go back when he's wake up. However, Chrono-Saltation had not only thrown Rimuru to the end of time and space, but it had also locked him out from returning to the world using space-time leap, as if banning Rimuru's existence itself from the world, preventing his return. And Ciel also tell him that his timeline had already destroyed, so he cannot go back. After hearing that, Rimuru start to feel a lot of emotion inside him: sadness, regret, and pain. All the emotions you can think of come to him at once and start to make him go insane. In the end, Ciel find a way to time travel to the past, but risk is too high. It can destroy Rimuru's spiritual body if anything goes wrong. And so, can Rimuru go back in a time unharmed? And what will be the consequences of it? Chapter 11. You want to destroy the world? The fall of the super magic kingdom and the rise of a true demon lord. The assault by the elves of the super magic kingdom had been swift and brutal, their goal clear: to capture Malim Nava, the daughter of the mighty Star King Dragon, Veldanava, and harness her unimaginable power for themselves. Malim had been a beacon of light, a symbol of hope and joy to those who knew her. But as she stood over the lifeless form of Gaia, her loyal companion, the last shred of innocence she had held onto shattered like glass. The warmth that once radiated from her was gone, replaced by a cold, seething rage that threatened to consume everything in its path. Her heart, torn apart by grief and betrayal, became a void that sucked in all the light around it and replaced it with a dark, insatiable hunger for vengeance. From that void, her power surged forth, unrestrained and terrifying in its intensity. The elves had taken everything from her: her home, her friends, her innocence. In return, she would take everything from them: the wrath of a demon lord. The journey to the capital of the super magic kingdom was a blur of destruction. Malim moved with a purpose, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light, her body radiating an aura so intense it warped the very air around her. She had no need for subtlety, no desire for mercy, only the overwhelming need to make them all pay. When she reached the capital, there was no warning, no ultimatum. The sky darkened as if heralding the apocalypse, and in a single, devastating moment, Malim unleashed the full force of her power. A massive flash of light exploded from her outstretched hand, blinding in its brilliance, as it tore through the castle walls with the ferocity of 1,000 storms. With Dragon Nova, her ultimate skill, Satinal, Lord of Wrath, manifested in its most horrifying form. A cataclysmic beam of pure energy that obliterated everything in its path. The king of the super magic kingdom, along with his entire court, was vaporized in an instant, reduced to nothing more than dust in the wind. The castle crumbled, its magnificent spires reduced to rubble, and the city below was swallowed by a wave of destruction that left nothing but ruin in its wake. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Malim's rage knew no bounds, and as she tore through the capital, her power only grew more feral, more uncontrollable. Hundreds, thousands of elves fell before her, their screams lost in the roar of her wrath. The ground trembled beneath her feet, the very air crackling with the energy of her rage. In the midst of this carnage, something within Malim shifted. The darkness that had consumed her heart solidified, crystallizing into something far more dangerous: a true demon lord. The harvest festival descended upon her, a twisted mockery of the joyous event it was meant to be. Malim's transformation was complete, her power now rivaling that of the ancient beings who had shaped the very world. And from the depths of her despair and rage, Gaia was reborn. But this was not the Gaia that Malim had known and loved. This was a creature of pure chaos, its form twisted and corrupted by the darkness that had taken hold of Malim's soul. The chaos dragon that emerged was a monstrosity, a mindless beast driven by the same thirst for destruction that now defined its master. The Crimson King intervenes. News of the devastation spread quickly, and it wasn't long before the demon lord Guy Crimson, known for his unmatched power and strategic mind, arrived on the scene. Guy had seen many battles and had faced countless foes, but what he encountered in the ruins of the super magic kingdom was unlike anything he had ever faced. Malim stood amidst the destruction, her body glowing with an ethereal light, her eyes devoid of any emotion save for an all-consuming rage. Behind her, Gaia rampaged, its massive form tearing through the city with reckless abandon. The elves were no more than ants beneath its claws, their desperate attempts to flee only adding to the chaos. Guy knew immediately that this wasn't the Malim he had once sparred with in friendly competition. This was a being of pure destruction, her power unchecked and her mind lost to the madness of her transformation. "Malim," Guy called out, his voice calm yet commanding. "This isn't you. Stop this now before you destroy everything." But Malim didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge his presence. Her focus was entirely on the destruction she was wreaking, her mind a void filled only with the echoes of her pain and anger. Guy sighed, his usual smirk replaced by a look of grim determination. He had hoped to avoid this, but it was clear that words alone wouldn't reach her. He would have to fight her, to bring her back from the brink by force if necessary. With a flick of his wrist, Guy summoned his own power, the air around him darkening as his demonic aura flared to life. His hell flare, a sphere of intense black flames, formed in his hand, pulsing with malevolent energy. He couldn't afford to hold back. Malim was too powerful, too dangerous in this state. "Let's see if you can handle this, Malim," Guy muttered, his eyes narrowing as he hurled the hell flare toward her. The black flames engulfed Malim, the intense heat warping the air around her. But instead of flinching or retreating, Malim simply raised a hand, and with a flick of her wrist, the flames dissipated as if they were nothing more than a nuisance. Guy's eyes widened in surprise, but he quickly recovered. "So you're not going to make this easy, huh? Fine by me." The battle that followed was nothing short of cataclysmic. Clash of the Titans. Malim charged at Guy with a speed that defied comprehension, her dragon buster tearing through the air toward him. The sheer force behind her strike sent shockwaves through the ground, causing the already crumbling city to shake even more violently. Guy met her attack head-on, his crimson slash slicing through the air with equal force. The two powers collided in a spectacular explosion of energy, the impact sending both combatants skidding back. They didn't stop. Malim was relentless, her attacks a whirlwind of destruction as she unleashed one powerful skill after another. Her Drago break tore through the ground, leaving massive craters in its wake, while her dragonic aura shielded her from Guy's retaliatory strikes. But Guy was no ordinary demon lord. His darkness wave countered her every move, the dark energy rippling through the air as it sought to overwhelm her. His ultimate skill, Lucifer, Lord of Pride, allowed him to manipulate the very elements around them, turning the battlefield to his advantage as he summoned storms of ice and fire to wear her down. For 7 days and 7 nights, they fought, the world around them shattering under the weight of their power. Each strike, each clash of their ultimate skills, sent shockwaves through the very fabric of reality. The sky was torn apart by the force of their battle, the earth scorched and frozen in equal measure. Malim's rage fueled her, driving her to push beyond her limits, while Guy's determination to save his friend gave him the strength to keep fighting. Neither would yield, neither would back down, and as the days wore on, it became clear that this battle could only end in one of two ways. Either Malim would be brought back from the edge, or she would be lost to the darkness forever. It was on the 7th night that a new presence made itself known. The air around them shimmered with a soft, golden light, and from that light emerged Ramiris, the elemental queen. Ramiris had watched the battle from afar, her heart aching as she saw the toll it was taking on both Malim and Guy. She knew that if this continued, neither of them would survive, not in the way that mattered. And so, with a heavy heart, she made the decision to intervene. "That's enough," Ramiris said softly, her voice carrying over the sound of their clashing powers. Malim, caught off guard, hesitated for the first time since the battle began. Guy took the opportunity to pull back, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he turned to face the newcomer. "Ramiris," he said, his tone a mix of relief and concern. What are you doing here? Ramiris didn't answer right away. Instead, she floated toward Malim, her expression gentle but determined. As she moved, her form began to tremble, her elemental essence straining under the weight of two overwhelming forces: the dark, corrupting magic of demons and the raw, primal aura of dragons. The chaotic energies swirled around her, tainting her once pure nature, twisting her very being as they merged into her elemental core. As Ramiris struggled to absorb the demonic and draconic energy, she cried out, "Malim, you've suffered enough. It's time to stop this. Let go of your anger. Let go of your pain." As Ramiris began to speak, her words were abruptly cut off by a sudden, violent attack. A chilling voice echoed through the air, uttering two words, "Purple Void." Malim was caught off guard as a powerful force slammed into her, sending her flying backward. She turned her head toward the direction of the voice, and there, standing ominously, were three figures. The one in the middle, clearly the leader, had platinum silver violet hair that shimmered in the dim light and eyes that gleamed a menacing gold. With a laid-back, almost playful smirk, he called out to the figure beside him, "Oh my, looks like you had a close call, guy. You okay?" His tone was nonchalant, almost mocking, as if the entire scene was nothing more than a game to him. Before anyone could respond, he vanished from sight. The other two figures remained in place, one with burning crimson eyes and hair to match, and the other with icy blue eyes and stark white hair, their presence adding an unsettling tension to the already chaotic scene. In the blink of an eye, the platinum-haired figure reappeared in front of Malim, his speed and power overwhelming. Before she could react, he delivered a crushing blow to her abdomen, forcing her to the ground. The impact left her gasping for breath, her mind spinning as she tried to grasp what was happening. But there was no time to recover. He placed a warm hand on her forehead, and she could feel her strength draining away as if her very essence was being consumed. "You little," Guy muttered, his voice low with a mixture of irritation and reluctant amusement. "So, you've decided to wake up, huh, Rimuru?" Malim's body trembled uncontrollably, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. The darkness that had clouded her mind was beginning to lift, but the process was agonizingly slow. Tears welled up in her eyes, the vibrant blue glow that had once defined her now dimming, overtaken by the despair that had gripped her soul. Her small frame shook, torn between the remnants of her overwhelming power and the fragile emotions that were resurfacing. In that moment, Rimuru was by her side, standing in front of her with an expression of deep concern. He gently pulled her into an embrace, his arms wrapping around her trembling form. "I'm here, Malim. I've always been here." His voice was soft, filled with warmth and reassurance, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Malim felt a sliver of peace. She looked up at him, her tear-filled eyes searching for answers. The faintest glimmer of the playful girl she once was flickered in her gaze. I didn't want to lose control. I didn't want to hurt anyone." Her voice broke as she spoke, the weight of her guilt pressing down on her. Rimuru held her tighter, allowing her to release the tears she had been holding back for so long. Though she couldn't explain why, Malim felt a deep sense of safety in Rimuru's embrace. There was a connection between them that she couldn't fully understand, but it was undeniable. He felt like family, like someone she could trust, even if her memories of him were distant and clouded. As she clung to him, tears streaming down her face, Ignis, Frigidus, Ramiris, and Guy slowly approached, their expressions a mix of relief and concern. Some time later, after Malim had calmed down, her gaze drifted toward Gaia, the Chaos Dragon, her sibling, and once her protector. Now, he was a monstrous reflection of what she had become, twisted by the very rage and despair that had consumed her. As she stared at the dragon, the last remnant of her family, she saw only the darkness that had once filled her own heart. The realization of what Gaia had become, of what she had done to her own kin, weighed heavily on her soul. With a heavy heart and tears in her eyes, Malim made the hardest decision of her life. She decided to seal away the Chaos Dragon, an act of mercy to undo the horror she had unleashed. But she also knew that in sealing Gaia away, she was severing the last connection to the life she had once known. It was a painful finality, a step toward redemption, but also a loss that she wasn't sure she could ever fully recover from. Just as she was about to complete the seal, Rimuru stepped forward and gently placed a hand on her shoulder, stopping her. "Wait a moment, Malim," he said softly. She turned to him, confused and weary. Rimuru extended his right hand, and from his palm emerged a swirling vortex of dark black and violet energy. The vortex expanded, enveloping the Chaos Dragon and consuming it completely. As the vortex began to shrink, it compressed into a small sphere, glowing with a faint, mysterious light. "This egg," Rimuru said, holding the now formed object out to her, "is a dragon's. Gaia will be born again from it." His voice was calm and reassuring as he placed the egg gently into Malim's hands. Malim stared at the egg, her emotions a whirlwind of sorrow, hope, and uncertainty. This small, fragile thing represented both the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. It was a chance for redemption, for both herself and Gaia. She clutched the egg tightly to her chest, her tears falling onto its surface as she silently vowed to protect it, to protect the new life that would one day emerge from it. Third-person POV. At the summit of God's Mountain was a gorgeous garden, within which lay a slumbering, purple-scaled dragon who began to stir as his eyes gradually opened. Rimuru's POV. As I slowly emerged from my deep slumber, I felt the remnants of powerful emotions swirling within me. Grief, anger, and sorrow, all tangled together, threatening to resurface. It had been too much after Veldanava's death, and I had needed time to regain control. Now, as I fully awakened, I noticed that those overwhelming emotions had finally settled. There was a calmness within me, a quiet clarity that had been absent for what felt like an eternity. But that calm was quickly disrupted. A pulse of energy surged through the air, sharp and unmistakable. I recognized it immediately, Malim's aura. But it wasn't her usual vibrant energy. This was different. It was wild, overwhelming, and out of control. My senses sharpened, and concern flooded inside me. So it happened, I thought. Without hesitation, I began to move. My dragon form, which had been my resting state, shifted smoothly into my human form. As I walked through the tranquil garden, each step felt heavier with the weight of what I might find. The peaceful surroundings were in stark contrast to the turmoil I sensed from Malim, and it only heightened my urgency. As I approached the garden's exit, I saw them, Ignis and Frigidus, my loyal subordinates. They stood at the gate, ever vigilant. Ignis, with his fiery crimson eyes and matching hair, stood tall and fierce as always. Beside him was Frigidus, his cool blue eyes and white hair a perfect reflection of his calm and composed demeanor. Both of them turned to face me as I approached. "Lord Rimuru," Ignis said, his voice steady but with an edge of concern. Frigidus gave a respectful nod. We sensed the disturbance too. Malim's power, it's surging uncontrollably, he said, as if he knew what I was going to ask. I nodded, feeling the weight of the situation settle on my shoulders. "I felt it too," I replied, keeping my voice calm despite the storm of emotions brewing inside me. "We need to get to her now." With that, we moved together, cutting through the air with purpose. As we closed in on Malim's location, the intensity of her aura became almost suffocating. The raw power she was emanating was enough to warp the very atmosphere around her. My heart clenched with worry, but I forced myself to stay focused. I couldn't let fear distract me, not when Malim needed me most. No matter what was happening, I would reach her, and I would protect her. Ramorous POV. As I was speaking, my words were abruptly cut off by a sudden violent attack. Not aimed at me, but at Malim. A powerful force slammed into her, catching her off guard and sending her flying backward. The air crackled with energy, and in the midst of the chaos, a chilling voice echoed, saying only two words, "Purple Void." Malim and I turned our heads toward the direction of the voice, and there, standing ominously, were three figures. The one in the center, clearly the leader, had platinum silver violet hair that shimmered in the dim light, and his eyes gleamed a menacing gold. With a laid-back, almost playful smirk, he called out to the figure beside him, "Oh my, looks like you had a close call, guy. You okay?" His tone was nonchalant, almost mocking, as if the entire scene was nothing more than a game to him. Before anyone could respond, he vanished from sight. The other two figures remained in place, one with burning crimson eyes and hair to match, the other with icy blue eyes and stark white hair. Their presence added an unsettling tension to the already chaotic scene. In the blink of an eye, the platinum-haired figure reappeared in front of Malim, his speed and power overwhelming. Before she could react, he delivered a crushing blow to her abdomen, forcing her to the ground. The impact left her gasping for breath, her mind spinning as she tried to grasp what was happening. But there was no time to recover. He placed his hand on her forehead, and I could feel her strength draining away. "You little," Guy muttered, his voice low with a mixture of irritation and reluctant amusement. "So, you've decided to wake up, huh? Rimuru." When I heard that, my eyes widened in surprise. I had only heard rumors about the fifth true dragon named Rimuru, born some centuries ago. I heard from the others that he was an interesting and powerful individual. I hadn't met him before, but that was not the main topic here, and my thoughts quickly shifted back to the scene in front of me. Malim's body trembled, her eyes wide as the darkness that had clouded her mind began to lift. Tears welled up in her eyes, the blue glow dimming as the malevolent force that had held her in its grip started to recede. Her small frame shook uncontrollably. Rimuru stood beside her, his expression one of deep concern. He gently pulled her into an embrace, his arms wrapping around her trembling form. "I'm here, Malim. I've always been here." His voice was soft, filled with warmth and reassurance, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Malim felt a sliver of peace. Malim looked up at him, her eyes now filled with tears and the faintest glimmer of the playful girl she once was. I didn't want to lose control. I didn't want to hurt anyone." She buried her face in his chest, and he just hugged her tightly, letting her cry. As the tension in the air began to settle, Guy and I cautiously approached them, uncertain but relieved that the storm had finally passed. Guy's POV. The crimson sky was a stark contrast to the devastation that lay beneath it. I stood at the edge of what was once the grand capital of the super magic kingdom, now reduced to smoldering ruins. The stench of burning debris mixed with the sharp scent of magic, and the cries of the dying had faded into an eerie silence. All around me, the air was thick with the remnants of a fierce battle, a battle that had ravaged the land and left nothing but destruction in its wake. My eyes narrowed as I surveyed the scene before me. The sheer scale of the carnage was unlike anything I had witnessed in centuries. At the center of it all stood a lone figure, Malim Nava. The once vibrant and playful girl I had known was now a being of pure, unbridled rage. Her petite frame was bathed in a glowing aura of malevolent energy, and her eyes, usually so full of life, were now cold and empty, fixed on the devastation she had wrought. "So, it's come to this?" I muttered under my breath, my usual smirk absent. I had sensed the moment her transformation had begun. The fall of the super magic kingdom had been inevitable, but seeing Malim like this, completely consumed by her grief and rage, was something I had not anticipated. Malim's power was immense, far beyond what even I had expected. The dragon nova she unleashed had obliterated everything in its path, leaving nothing but ashes in its wake. I had arrived too late to stop the initial destruction, but I knew I couldn't let this continue. If Malim wasn't stopped, her rampage would tear apart the very fabric of the world. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. This wasn't going to be an easy fight, not by a long shot, but I was nothing if not determined. I'd faced overwhelming odds before, and I wasn't about to back down now. "Malim," I called out, my voice firm, carrying over the still smoldering ruins. "This isn't who you are." You need to stop before there's nothing left to save. For a brief moment, it seemed like she might have heard me. Malim's gaze flickered, the faintest glimmer of recognition flashing in her eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared, swallowed by the darkness that had taken hold of her. I clenched my fists, my demonic aura flaring to life around me. "Looks like you're not going to make this easy," I said, more to myself than to Malim. I had hoped to reach her with words, but it was clear now that only force would get through to her. Without another word, I summoned my power. The ground beneath my feet cracked and splintered as my hell flare formed in my hand, a sphere of black flames pulsating with dark energy. I couldn't afford to hold back. Malim was far too powerful in this state. "Here we go," I murmured, launching the hell flare toward her. The sphere hurtled through the air, its intense heat warping the space around it. But Malim was ready. With a flick of her wrist, she dissipated the flames as though they were nothing more than a nuisance. I barely had time to react before she was upon me, her dragon buster tearing through the air with unimaginable force. Our clash was nothing short of cataclysmic. The impact of our powers colliding sent shockwaves through the already crumbling city, the ground quaking beneath our feet. I met her blow with my crimson slash, my sword of pure energy slicing through the air with equal ferocity. The resulting explosion of power lit up the sky, a beacon of destruction visible for miles around. For days we fought, our battle reducing what remained of the super magic kingdom to rubble. I knew I was fighting not just to stop Malim, but to save her. But with every passing moment, it became clear that the Malim I had known was slipping further away, buried beneath the overwhelming rage and grief that now defined her. By the seventh night, I was beginning to feel the strain. My power, though immense, was being pushed to its limits. And Malim, fueled by her unyielding wrath, showed no signs of slowing down. I could see it in her eyes, the madness that had taken hold, driving her to push beyond her limits, to destroy everything in her path. And then, just when I thought I might be forced to take more drastic measures, a soft, golden light shimmered in the distance. Ramiris appeared, her majestic frame glowing with an ethereal radiance that contrasted starkly with the destruction around us. My eyes widened in surprise, but I quickly recognized her presence as a sign of hope. Maybe, just maybe, Ramiris could reach Malim where I had failed. But before I could say anything, a sudden violent force slammed into Malim, sending her crashing to the ground. I barely had time to process what had happened when I heard a voice that sent a chill down my spine. "Purple Void." The words were spoken with such cold finality that even I, with all my power and experience, felt a sense of unease. I turned to face the source of the voice and found myself staring at three figures standing ominously in the shadows. The one in the center, clearly the leader, had platinum silver violet hair that shimmered in the dim light, and his eyes gleamed a menacing gold. A playful smirk played on his lips as he called out to me. "Oh my, looks like you had a close call, guy. You okay?" His tone was casual, almost mocking, as if the entire situation was nothing more than a game to him. My irritation flared. I knew that voice, that aura. "So, you've decided to wake up, huh, Rimuru?" I muttered, my voice laced with both relief and annoyance. It was typical of Rimuru to show up at the last possible moment, when everything was on the verge of falling apart. But as much as I might have wanted to scold Rimuru for his timing, I couldn't deny the relief that washed over me. If anyone could bring Malim back from the brink, it was him. Rimuru didn't respond to my comment. Instead, he moved with blinding speed, appearing in front of Malim in the blink of an eye. Before she could react, he delivered a crushing blow to her abdomen, forcing her to the ground. The impact left Malim gasping for breath, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. I watched as Rimuru placed a hand on Malim's forehead, his expression one of deep concern. I couldn't hear what Rimuru was saying, but the effect was immediate. The darkness that had consumed Malim's heart began to lift, her aura dimming as her overwhelming power was brought under control. And then, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Malim began to cry. The tears streamed down her face, her small frame shaking as she clung to Rimuru, seeking the comfort and safety she had lost. I let out a slow breath, my shoulders relaxing as the tension drained from my body. The battle was over. Malim was safe for now. I approached Rimuru and Malim, my usual smirk returning to my face. "You always did have a knack for showing up when you're needed most," I said, my tone lighter now. Rimuru glanced up at me, a small, weary smile playing on his lips. "And you always manage to hold the fort until I get here," he replied, his voice warm with camaraderie. I chuckled, but my gaze quickly turned serious as I looked at Malim. She was still fragile, still teetering on the edge of despair. It would take time for her to recover fully from this, to come to terms with everything that had happened. As we stood there, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for Rimuru's intervention, for Ramuru's compassion, and for the fact that, despite everything, we had managed to save Malim from the abyss. But I also knew that this was only the beginning. There were still battles to be fought, still dangers lurking in the shadows. But for now, we had won a small victory, and that was enough. I looked out over the ruins of the super magic kingdom, the devastation a stark reminder of the cost of our battle. But amidst the rubble, there was hope that Malim would heal, that we could rebuild what had been lost. And as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, I allowed myself a rare moment of peace, knowing that, for now, we were safe. Rimuru's POV. After everything had settled, Guy proposed a meeting about our future plans, and Ramiris, with a determined look, supported his decision. Malim stood beside me, cradling the dragon egg gently in her arms. I couldn't help but think, Ciel did an excellent job capturing Gaia's soul before it disappeared. The weight of the recent events still hung heavily in the air as we decided to convene at Guy's place, the Frost Palace on the Ice Continent. The journey was swift, and soon we found ourselves at the Grand Frost Palace. We sat around a round table on the balcony, with the icy winds sweeping through, carrying with them a sense of unease that still lingered from the battle. Malim was seated beside me, while Guy and Ramiris sat across from us. Behind me, Ignis and Frigidus stood like silent sentinels, their presence a constant reminder of the power that lurked beneath the surface. Guy's maids, who were no ordinary servants but primordial demons like him, moved with graceful efficiency as they served us snacks and poured drinks. Their calm demeanor stood in stark contrast to the storm of emotions that swirled within me. But there was little time to appreciate the surroundings. Ramiris immediately began bombarding me with questions, her voice a rapid-fire assault on my senses. "Why didn't you come earlier? What were you doing? Why didn't you show yourself before? Did you not care about Malim?" Her relentless questioning started to grate on my nerves, the irritation building until I finally cut her off, my voice cold and serious. "What is your desire, Ramiris?" "To destroy the world, to unleash two catastrophes, causing chaos everywhere." My words struck a nerve, and Ramiris flinched slightly, her eyes wide with shock. Guy, observing in silence, remained still. He understood better than anyone the destruction that could have occurred if I had lost control of my emotions. Then Malim, her voice small yet filled with a deep-seated confusion, asked, "Why do I feel like your family, but I don't know who you are?" Taking a deep breath, I allowed a softer expression to cross my face as I responded, "I'm your uncle, the younger brother of your father." I paused, searching for the right words before continuing. "And I'm sorry for not being there when you needed me the most." The room fell into a heavy silence, Malim's eyes widening as she processed my words. Slowly, she placed the egg on the table and walked toward me, wrapping her arms around me in a tight hug. The warmth of her embrace was tinged with a sadness that I could feel seeping into my soul. "She's glad to know she's not alone," I thought as I gently patted her head. After a moment, she pulled away and returned to her seat, a fragile peace settling over the room. With that, the discussion began in earnest about what to do next. Guy, always the strategist, proposed the founding of a Demon Lord Council, an idea that both Malim and Ramiris immediately supported. This council would act as a governing body for Demon Lords, with the three of them as its founding members. They offered me a seat on the council, but I declined. The responsibilities that came with such a position didn't align with my goals or my future. The council's formation would have strict conditions for membership. Any would-be demon lord would need the backing of at least 3 current members, and their recruitment would be discussed during a Walpurgis. Those who failed to meet the criteria would face the council's wrath, purged from existence. Third-person POV. With the 3 coming together to form the Demon Lord Council, Malim found a renewed sense of purpose. Perhaps in an effort to atone for her past actions, she began helping as many people as she could. She took on the role of an arbitrator for international disputes, slaying powerful monsters and magical beasts that threatened towns and cities. In her quest, Malim discovered the Dragonauts, a race of demi-humans born from the union of humans and the dragons that had spawned from Gaia's essence. Recognizing them as the closest thing she had to family, she took them in and protected them. Over time, the city of the Forgotten Dragon was built by the Dragonauts in her honor, a place where they could live in peace under Malim's watchful eye. And so, amidst the ruins of what once was, new beginnings were forged. The world had changed, and with it, the roles of its most powerful beings. But even as they looked toward the future, the shadows of their pasts would continue to shape the paths they walked. Inside the dimly lit, modest house, the tension was palpable as 2 figures sat across from each other. Shadows danced on the walls, cast by the flickering light of a single candle. The air was thick with unspoken thoughts, each word laden with underlying intent. "I'll do as you say and keep an eye on him," said the first person, their voice a careful mix of agreement and hidden reluctance. The figure leaned forward slightly, the shadows obscuring their expression, adding an unsettling edge to the promise. "Good," replied the other, their tone soft yet laced with an ominous undertone, as if warning of the consequences of failure. "But remember, you must keep your promise." The words hung in the air, a subtle reminder of the binding nature of their pact. A moment of silence passed, broken only by the crackle of the candle's flame. "You don't have to worry about that," the first person responded, their voice barely masking a hint of sorrow. "You know he's important to me too. He's my family." The calmness in their tone was betrayed by a flicker of sadness, like a deep wound barely concealed beneath a composed exterior. As if to underscore the gravity of their words, the person lifted their right hand, revealing a purple orb that materialized in their palm. The orb pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat slowed to a near standstill, its energy weak and fragile. It looked almost like a soul, faint, shimmering, and undeniably delicate. The healing was happening, but at a torturously slow pace, each second a battle against inevitable decay. The second person's gaze hardened, eyes narrowing at the sight of the orb. Without a word, they rose to their feet, the subtle shift in their demeanor signaling an end to the conversation. A coldness settled in the room as they turned to leave, their departure leaving behind an uneasy stillness. "Remember?" the departing figure said in a low voice, just before stepping out. "Failure is not an option, not for either of us." The door closed with a quiet click, leaving the remaining person alone with the dim light and the fragile, pulsing orb. The sorrow in their eyes deepened as they stared at the orb, a silent resolve taking hold. Whatever was happening, it was far from over, and the stakes were higher than either of them dared to admit. Chapter 12: Hero's Journey and Suffering. Third-person POV. In the dim light of dawn, a lone figure moved silently through the forest, the rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds the only sounds to accompany her. The white cape that billowed behind her with each step stood out starkly against the dark backdrop of ancient trees. The cape dress was elegantly draped over her form, accentuating her graceful yet determined stride. Beneath it, a long-sleeved black shirt clung to her, the contrast between light and dark highlighting the duality of her nature, both pure and battle-hardened. An intricately designed black corset cinched her waist, emphasizing her lithe figure. Attached to it was a black waist cape that swayed rhythmically with her movements, adding an air of mystery to her presence. Her hands, gloved in white, were delicate, Yet the gauntlet glove on her left hand hinted at a readiness for combat. The glove's metal surface gleamed faintly as she brushed aside a low-hanging branch, her movements fluid and precise. White and blue boots crunched softly against the forest floor, each step deliberate, every sound controlled. Beneath her cape, black spats covered her legs, allowing for both freedom of movement and modesty. Around her neck, a ruby necklace caught the first rays of sunlight, the gem glinting with a fiery intensity that mirrored the resolve in her heart. Her hair, a cascade of soft locks, was tied into a side ponytail that fell gracefully over her shoulder. It framed a face that could easily be mistaken for that of a delicate and quiet girl, with smooth, luminous skin and deep, gentle eyes. But behind those calm, gentle eyes was a depth of experience, a history of battles fought and hardships endured. There was a subtle strength in the set of her jaw, a quiet determination in her gaze as she scanned her surroundings. Her elegance was subtle yet undeniable, with a graceful and poised demeanor that drew attention effortlessly. Yet, much of her beauty was often concealed behind a white mask. The mask hid the delicate features of her face, adding an air of mystery and enigma. Still, her presence remained captivating, the hidden beauty beneath the mask only heightening her allure. Despite her beauty, there was an air of solitude about her. She moved with purpose, yet there was no arrogance in her steps. Her presence was serene, almost ethereal, as if she belonged to a world beyond the one she now walked through. The wind whispered around her, as if recognizing her as a guardian, a protector of something precious. As she reached a clearing, the light fully illuminated her, revealing the full extent of her elegance and power. She paused for a moment, her gaze drifting to the horizon where the sun began its ascent. In that moment, she was both a warrior and a dreamer, someone who had seen the past, fought for the future, and carried the weight of time on her shoulders. And then, with a soft breath, Chloe Aubert, the true chosen hero, resumed her journey to the forest known as the Forest of Ravenwood. Chloe's POV. It has been years since I traveled back to the past. The memories of that final battle against Feldway still haunt me. The devastation, the hopelessness, the loss. Feldway had inevitably sent Sensei to the end of time and space. I can still feel the dread in my heart when I saw Rimuru Sensei vanish into the void, his presence ripped from the world by that cursed Chrono-Saltation. Sensei, the moment he disappeared, everything spiraled into chaos. Feldway rampaged like a mad god, and we tried to stop him, but it was futile. Even without Rimuru Sensei, we fought with all our might. The Tempest executives, Hinata, and even the remaining demon lords, Guy, Ramiris, Luminous, Dino, and Leon. It wasn't enough. Feldway unleashed Malim and Velzard, bending them to his will, and when he released the world-destroying dragon, Ivaraj, it was the beginning of the end. He killed Hinata, right in front of me, and just like that, it happened again. The surge of grief, the failure, the overwhelming sorrow, all of it triggered another time loop. This time, Hinata's soul came with me, and I promised her, and myself, that things would be different. I will save everyone. I will save Sensei. I won't let him die again. But something was different. This time loop wasn't like the others. Something felt wrong. The events didn't play out the same way, not even close. Things took a strange turn when I met Luminous Valentine. At first, she didn't trust me, and I couldn't blame her. After all, who can trust a stranger from the future? But as the events I predicted began to happen, she began to trust me more and more. I told her what destruction Veldora the Storm Dragon, the youngest of the 4 true dragons, would cause in the future, thinking I could warn her. But what she said next completely shocked me. 5 true dragons exist, she said calmly, her heterochromatic eyes observing me sharply. Veldora is the second youngest, not the youngest. The Void Dragon, born just a few centuries ago, is the youngest. He's a mystery, though. Very few people know of him, and even fewer know his name. Couldn't hide my shock. 5 true dragons? The Void Dragon? This was news to me. This wasn't something I had encountered in any of the countless time loops I had lived through. Not once. Luminous continued. He's not just a myth, though many believe him to be. The other true dragons didn't deny his existence, and at the last Walpurgis, I met 2 of his subordinates, dragon lords, who claimed to serve him. And according to other demon lords, he lives inside the forest of Ravenwood. Ravenwood is a name given to the forest by the Void Dragon himself. Her words rattled me. A 5th dragon, an unknown entity. A variable that didn't exist in my previous loops. What does this mean? That's how I found myself on a new path. One that didn't exist before. Heading to the forest of Ravenwood, where the Void Dragon was said to rule, commanding an army of dragons and monsters alike. I need to know more. I need answers. As I entered the forest of Ravenwood, I was struck by its beauty and organization. The trees stretched out like sentinels, their leaves shimmering with an otherworldly glow, as if the forest itself was alive, watching me. It felt like I was stepping into a haven, a sanctuary untouched by the chaos of the outside world. This place, it's surreal, but I didn't have time to admire the scenery for long. As I ventured deeper, a sudden gust of wind whipped around me, and before I could react, a figure shot down from the sky, landing in front of me with a powerful impact. Dirt and debris flew up, but when the dust settled, I saw him. A tall man with crimson red hair and eyes that burned with a fiery intensity. He wore armor that matched his fierce appearance, and the moment our eyes met, I knew this wasn't an ordinary opponent. Who are you, and what are you doing here, human? His voice was laced with arrogance, but I could sense the underlying caution. He was experienced, not to be taken lightly. I'm not here to cause trouble, I said calmly, hiding my unease. I could feel his power radiating off him in waves. I've come to meet the Void Dragon. At my words, his demeanor shifted ever so slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. He quickly masked it with a smirk. You think you can just waltz in here and meet my lord? Prove yourself worthy first. Of course, I sighed internally. Nothing is ever simple. And how exactly am I supposed to prove myself? I asked, keeping my tone even. A grin spread across his face. It's simple. Survive one of my attacks. If you can, I'll take you to him. If not, you die here. So this is how it's going to be. Before I could respond, he raised his hand, and the air around us grew heavy. A dense, fiery beam of pure energy surged toward me. The sheer intensity of it burned the air, packed with immense magicules. I had no time to waste. I focused, my grip tightening on my sword, and with a swift motion, I cut through the beam, splitting it cleanly in 2. In the same moment, I vanished and reappeared behind him, my blade poised at his neck. But he was fast, faster than I anticipated. With a sharp movement, he deflected my sword with his katana, sparks flying from the impact. Ha 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 ha! His laughter boomed through the forest. You're not bad at all. He sheathed his katana and crossed his arms, looking me over with newfound respect. I'm Ignis, the Fire Dragon Lord and one of the Void Dragon's subordinates. I lowered my sword, keeping my eyes on him. I'm Chronoa, the chosen hero. Ignis's smirk widened. A hero, huh? Interesting. Follow me. With that, he launched into the sky, his fiery aura blazing like a beacon. I nodded, following close behind him. The Void Dragon. This mystery that didn't exist in the past loops. What am I about to uncover? I steeled my resolve as I flew after Ignis. Whatever awaited me at the end of this journey, I was ready. I had to be. As I flew alongside Ignis, I marveled at the sight before me. Beneath us, a small city revealed itself, bathed in sunlight and surrounded by the thick, protective embrace of the forest. It wasn't vast like Tempest, but there was something about this place. Something ethereal, untouched by the chaos of the world. The architecture was sleek and elegant, reminiscent of early Tempest, yet more refined, more advanced. It had the kind of beauty that was almost too perfect to exist in this reality, as if a part of another realm had been transported here. My eyes scanned the city, the streets teeming with life, children laughing, people working, and the serene aura permeating the air. As we descended into the city, my mind swirled with thoughts of the revelations shared by Luminous. The fifth true dragon, Ravenwood, Ravenhelm, names and places I had never known before. The existence of this hidden world nagged at me, raising more questions than answers. Ignis had led me here without hesitation, almost as if this were a normal occurrence. Did he expect visitors to this supposedly forbidden zone often? We landed in front of the city's grand entrance, and my attention snapped back to the present. The gates, tall and intricately designed with dragon-like engravings, stood before us. Two guards resembling Kijins. No, they were something more, bowed their heads deeply to Ignis. It was clear they respected him, or feared him, perhaps both. Ignis, sensing my curiosity, spoke up as we walked through the gates. This place, he began with a wave of his hand, is called Ravenhelm. It's the heart of Ravenwood, the forest you've just entered. He glanced over his shoulder at me, pride gleaming in his crimson eyes. Beautiful, isn't it? I nodded, though words escaped me for a moment. Beautiful doesn't even begin to describe it. The city was alive, flourishing. Streets bustled with people who wore expressions of peace and contentment, an odd contrast to the chaotic, war-torn world outside these walls. Children played freely, their laughter ringing through the air, and the atmosphere felt untouched by the devastation I'd witnessed in so many other places. This was a city untouched by time, a hidden sanctuary in a world that was constantly at war. Ravenhelm is more than just a city, Ignis continued as he led the way through the bustling streets. It's a haven, a sanctuary for those loyal to the Void Dragon. Everyone here has been chosen. You see those guards? He pointed to the Kijin-like soldiers who had bowed earlier. They're not Kijins. They were enhanced by our Lord's power. The Void Dragon is generous to those who serve him. Enhanced by the Void Dragon? I glanced at the guards once more. Their magical density was extraordinary, stronger than even the most powerful Kijins I had encountered in the past. So, this place isn't just hidden. It's protected, altered by the Void Dragon's influence. But why? Ignis seemed to catch the question forming in my mind. Our Lord's power is unrivaled. This city thrives because of him. The people here are loyal, and in return, they are blessed with his protection. He smirked. No one would dare attack this place, not even the strongest of demon lords. The weight of his words settled in. Ravenhelm was not just a city. It was a fortress, a place built on the foundation of an unseen force. The Void Dragon. What kind of power does he truly possess? As we walked further, Ignis's pride in the city became more apparent. Look around, he said, gesturing to the streets lined with shops, homes, and training grounds. Everything you see here was built under our Lord's guidance. Ravenhelm was created to serve as a beacon, a symbol of what the Void Dragon represents: strength, peace, and prosperity. I took in the sights around me. The people weren't just surviving, they were thriving. The city's design was flawless. Its technology advanced beyond what I'd seen, even in Tempest. And yet, it was the sense of calm that struck me the most. There was no fear here, no tension. It was as if the very air hummed with stability. Why was Ravenwood kept hidden? I asked, my voice low. Why has no one outside heard of this place or your lord? Ignis glanced at me, a shadow of something. Was it hesitation? Crossing his face before he spoke. The Void Dragon prefers to remain a mystery. Few outside of this forest even know of his existence, and those who do often believe he's just a legend. That's how our Lord prefers it. He acts when he chooses to. Those who come here seeking him must be worthy. Otherwise, he let the sentence hang ominously. I absorbed his words, the weight of them settling in my chest. A hidden true dragon, a city built in secret, a power that rivals all others. What am I walking into? As we approached the palace, my mind continued to race. The palace itself was a marvel, smaller than I expected but no less grand. It was built with the same meticulous care as the rest of the city. Its walls gleamed, and the energy that surrounded it was palpable. Ignis led me through its hallways, speaking more about Ravenhelm as we walked. "You should know the Lord is a private individual. He doesn't entertain guests often, and very few are allowed within the inner sanctum of Ravenwood." He turned and looked at me with a small smirk. "You're the first outsider I've ever escorted here personally. Don't waste this opportunity." "First outsider?" My heart raced slightly. What does the Void Dragon want with me? Does he already know I'm here? Why would he allow this? Unless... We reached the back garden, an open space filled with rare flowers and lush greenery. At its center was a gazebo, and sitting there was a man with white hair and piercing blue eyes. The air around him was as cold as his appearance suggested, but he radiated power. A different kind of power than Ignis, but no less intimidating. "Yo, Frigidus," Ignis called out casually, his usual arrogant tone now lighter. "What are you doing lounging here? Where's the Lord?" Frigidus's icy gaze lifted from his tea, his eyes narrowing slightly as he glanced at me. "I don't know where the Lord is," he replied, his voice matching the chill of his aura. His eyes, however, fixated on me with suspicion. "And why is there an outsider here?" Before Ignis could answer, I stepped forward, my voice calm but firm. "My name is Chronoa, the true hero. I've come here seeking an audience with the Void Dragon." Frigidus's expression barely changed, though I could sense a shift in his energy. He took a sip of his tea before replying, "The Lord is not here. He's gone out for some business, and I don't know when he will return." "Gone?" I frowned slightly, though I made sure to keep my composure. So close, yet he's just out of reach. Still, I can't afford to leave. Not without answers. "May I wait here?" I asked, trying to maintain a neutral tone, though my heart raced with a mixture of impatience and frustration. Frigidus simply nodded, not giving me any more than that. I took a seat on one of the chairs in the garden, my eyes drifting toward the distant mountains visible beyond the palace grounds. "The Void Dragon? Who are you, really? Why did no one know of your existence? What role do you play in this timeline in my mission? And why do I feel like I'm stepping into something far greater than I ever imagined?" As I sat, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. Ignis and Frigidus resumed their conversation, but their voices faded into the background. My focus was on the path ahead. Every loop I've experienced, every moment of loss, every time I saw Sensei vanish into the void, it all comes back to this. My grip tightened on the hilt of my sword. I won't fail this time. I can't. The breeze blew gently through the garden, carrying with it the scent of flowers and the weight of unspoken promises. And now I wait, for the dragon that wasn't supposed to exist, for the answers that may change everything. I took a deep breath, watching as Ignis and Frigidus continued their conversation. My eyes drifted over the garden's serene beauty, the soft rustle of leaves in the wind, the gentle sway of the flowers. But my mind was far from peaceful. I had to stay focused. I came here for answers. Answers I didn't even know I needed until now. I can't let this chance slip by. Every loop I've experienced, every time I saw Rimuru-san vanish into the void, disappearing without a trace, it hurts. My chest tightens at the memory, that familiar ache swelling again, threatening to consume me. My heart burns, like it's being torn apart each time I think about him. He vanished, and I wasn't there to stop it. I clenched my fists in frustration, nails digging into my palms. No more. If the Void Dragon truly holds the power to change everything, to alter fate itself, then I have to know. I have to find him. And more importantly, I have to be ready. Time passed in quiet anticipation, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. The weight felt agonizing, stretching on for what seemed like an eternity. The tension coiled inside me like a serpent, ready to strike. But then, suddenly, everything shifted. The air around us grew dense, an ominous pressure forming in the middle of the garden. A space started to crack, reality itself fracturing as tendrils of black and purple mist began to swirl, pulling in the surrounding light. My breath hitched, my senses sharpened. This is it. Ignis and Frigidus immediately dropped to their knees, their expressions rigid with reverence. They didn't need to speak for me to understand what was happening. Their reaction alone confirmed it. He's here. The mist began to part, and from the vortex, a figure stepped forward, slowly becoming visible. My heart pounded in my chest, faster and faster. Platinum silver violet hair, golden eyes that gleamed with unfathomable power, and a regal, majestic attire adorned him. He moved with an elegance and presence that demanded attention, his aura suffocating in its intensity. My eyes widened in disbelief. It can't be, but I knew. I knew this presence, this aura that radiated a familiar yet terrifying power. My breath caught in my throat, and before I could stop myself, I whispered, "Rimuru?" My heart started to race wildly, faster than I could comprehend. He looks different, so different. But that presence, it's him. It has to be. My mind scrambled, trying to piece together how this could be possible, but my body moved before my thoughts could catch up. Without warning, I dashed toward him, faster than anyone could see. The mask that I was wearing slipped when I dashed. No one had time to react. Not Ignis, not Frigidus. In an instant, I had crossed the distance, colliding into him with a force I hadn't intended. He stumbled back, falling to the ground, his eyes wide in surprise. But I didn't care. I couldn't hold myself back any longer. My arms wrapped around him, pulling him close, clutching him desperately as if afraid he would slip away again. My heart was pounding so loudly that it drowned out everything else. The garden, the world, even my own thoughts. "Rimuru," I whispered, my voice trembling, betraying the storm of emotions raging inside me. His golden eyes stared up at me, confusion flickering across his face. He hadn't expected this, hadn't expected me. But I didn't give him the chance to speak. Before he could say anything, before reality could catch up to us, I did something even more reckless. I kissed him. It was brief, only for a moment, but it was enough to feel the warmth of his lips, to remind myself that this wasn't some illusion. He was real. He was here. When I pulled back, his eyes were wide, his shock evident, but so was mine. My breath hitched, my body trembling slightly as I clung to him. Why did I do that? My heart was hammering in my chest, and I struggled to find words, to make sense of the chaos that had erupted inside me. His voice finally broke the silence, low and hesitant. What are you doing?" But all I could think was, he's real. He's really here. I swallowed hard, my mind still reeling, but I had to say something. Anything. I couldn't help it, I whispered, my voice barely audible, as my grip on him tightened. "You disappeared. Every time. Couldn't save you. I couldn't reach you." Tears stung my eyes as I finally let the truth spill out. "I thought I lost you forever." His expression softened. He chuckled softly, patting my head like I was still that same young girl who'd always followed him around. "Lost me? Ha 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 ha. Who do you think I am?" There he was, that playful tone. The one that always made me feel like I didn't have to carry the world alone. But this time, something in me refused to let go. I stared at him intently, my emotions raw, bare for him to see. His laugh faded, his eyes avoiding mine as if he understood something deeper was happening here. "I've been through countless loops," I began, my voice thick with emotion. "I've watched you disappear into the void again and again, and each time, I was helpless. But this time I'll save you. I don't care what it takes." Rimuru, or the Void Dragon, stared at me, clearly unsure how to respond. His golden eyes flickered with something, a vulnerability that made my heart twist. I took a deep breath, fighting the tears threatening to spill. For a moment, there was only silence between us, the weight of everything pressing down. Then, slowly, he began to rise to his feet, his gaze never leaving mine. His presence was overwhelming, a force that seemed to warp the very air around us. "You always speak of things beyond my understanding, Chloe," he said, his tone measured. "But things are different now. It's not the same as before." I nodded, standing tall despite the weight of my emotions. I'll explain my part. But first, my voice softened, my gaze locking onto his. I need to know if you're still him. Are you still Rimuru? His expression faltered for the briefest moment, something flickering in his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. I am the Void Dragon now, but some part of him remains. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it was enough. For now, I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing myself to stay composed. I found him. Now I just have to make sure I don't lose him again. Hinata's POV. The sensation of being ripped apart and pulled back together was disorienting, yet familiar. This was only my second time looping, but it already felt like an eternity. I can only imagine what it was like for Chloe, who had done this countless times before. I clung to my sense of self, even as Chloe's consciousness pressed against mine, dominant and all-encompassing. We drifted in the void between moments, where time had no meaning. I was trapped in Chloe's body, seeing the world through her eyes, feeling her emotions. But I wasn't her. I never would be. Here we go again. Hey, Hinata, you still with me? Chloe's voice broke through the empty space. She sounded so calm, like this was just another routine. But I knew better. I could feel her emotions, the fear she tried to hide, the desperation she never spoke of. Yeah, I'm here, I replied, my thoughts laced with a bitterness I couldn't quite suppress. Chloe sighed, a wave of frustration passing through our shared link. We'll get it right this time. Promise. You always say that. The thought was sharp, cutting. But Chloe didn't flinch. She had heard it before. Who knows how many times. We're closer now, Hinata. I can feel it. Her voice softened, full of that unshakable confidence she always carried. The confidence of someone who had looped through time over and over, trying to fix everything, trying to save everyone. But closer to what? A better outcome? A future where we could finally break free from this cycle? I wasn't sure I believed in that anymore. And this was only my second loop. I couldn't shake the memories of that final battle. The way Feldway had rampaged, unstoppable, as we threw everything we had at him. His laughter still rang in my ears, a haunting melody of our failure. I had seen comrades fall, watched as Hinata, the woman I used to be, had been struck down, her life snuffed out like a candle in the wind. And now, I mused bitterly. Now I'm nothing more than a voice in Chloe's head, a shadow of who I used to be. How did Chloe keep going? How did she not shatter under the weight of all those failures? Don't think like that. Chloe's determination cut through my thoughts, pushing away my doubts. I need you with me, Hinata. We're in this together. Together. The word tasted hollow. I was with her, but not really. I wasn't Chloe. I was just here, trapped inside her. A soul without a body, watching and waiting. She was the one in control, the one who could act. Without her permission, I'm just a passenger. But I felt it too. The shift in the air, the way the world began to reform around us. Chloe was right, we were getting closer to something. The question was, would it be enough? Reality snapped into focus and we were standing in a familiar place. The holy empire of Lubelius. I had been here before in the first loop. But Chloe has been here countless times. I could feel her resolve harden as she surveyed the scene. Chloe approached her, luminous Valentine. The name itself brought a surge of conflicting emotions. Her cold, calculating demeanor had always made me wary, but I couldn't deny her strength, her knowledge. Yet when we met her this time, things were different. She didn't trust us, and why would she? We came to her with warnings of a future that hadn't happened yet, prophecies of destruction and death. Chloe had tried to explain and told her about the future devastation, about Veldora, about everything we'd seen. But then Luminous dropped a bombshell, something neither of us had expected. Hinata's POV. 5 true dragons exist. Luminous words echoed in my mind, still as shocking as the first time I heard them. The Void Dragon, an unknown entity, a variable that had never appeared in any of the past loops we had lived through. 5 true dragons? How could that be? My thoughts raced, trying to piece it together. Everything I knew, everything I had fought for, it all seemed meaningless in the face of this new revelation. Luminous, calm, sharp heterochromatic eyes observed us as she spoke. He's not just a myth. The other true dragons acknowledge him. And according to other demon lords, he lives inside the forest of Ravenwood. Ravenwood is a name given to the forest by the Void Dragon himself. At the last Walpurgis, I even met 2 of his subordinates, dragon lords who serve him faithfully. Dragon lords, the title alone sent a shiver down my spine. I had known we were heading into dangerous territory, but this was something else entirely. What did this mean? Chloe's shock mirrored my own, though she tried her best to remain composed. But I could feel it through our shared bond, the doubt, the fear, and the uncertainty creeping into her heart. And that's when I knew I had to push through my own despair. We need answers, Chloe, I urged her, forcing my voice to be strong. This is a new path, a chance to change things, maybe for the better. Don't lose focus now. I won't, she promised, her determination flaring like a beacon in the dark. With this sudden piece of information, we found a completely uncharted path. After a little bit of information gathering, Chloe decided to go into the forest and see the truth for herself. As we ventured deep into the forest of Ravenwood, I couldn't shake the heavy anxiety weighing on my chest. The forest was beautiful, almost surreal, but I couldn't bring myself to appreciate it. Every step we took felt like another step closer to a truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. The Void Dragon, the mysteries surrounding him. It all felt too big, too overwhelming. Stay sharp, Chloe, I cautioned as we pressed on. We don't know what we're walking into. But before she could respond, a violent gust of wind tore through the trees, and a figure shot down from the sky with a powerful impact. The ground shook beneath us, and when the dust settled, there he stood. A tall man with crimson red hair and eyes that burned with a fiery intensity. He's strong, I thought, my combat senses instantly going on high alert. Be careful. Who are you, and what are you doing here, human? His voice was laced with pure arrogance, but I could see the underlying caution in his eyes. He knew Chloe wasn't an ordinary girl to be underestimated. I'm not here to cause trouble, Chloe replied calmly, though I could feel the sudden tension in her muscles. We've faced worse, I reminded her, though I knew the words provided little comfort. I've come to meet the Void Dragon, she stated firmly. At her words, I saw a flicker of genuine surprise cross his face, though he quickly masked it with a confident smirk. He's testing us, I thought, my mind racing through defensive strategies. Be ready for anything. You think you can just waltz in here and meet my lord? Prove yourself worthy first, he challenged, his grin widening. Of course, I thought bitterly. Nothing is ever simple. And how exactly am I supposed to prove myself? Chloe asked, keeping her voice perfectly steady. But I could feel her unease. This wasn't a situation we could afford to misjudge. Survive one of my attacks, he said simply. If you can, I'll take you to him. If not, you die here. So, this is how it's going to be, I thought grimly. Before Chloe could even respond, he raised his hand, and the air around us grew suffocatingly heavy with magicules. A dense, fiery beam of pure energy surged toward us. There was no time to think, only to act. Chloe's grip tightened on our sword, and with a swift, fluid motion, she cut through the beam, splitting the destructive fire cleanly in two. Good, I thought, a flicker of pride surfacing despite our grim circumstances. We're still in this. In the exact same moment, Chloe vanished using her overwhelming speed and reappeared directly behind him, her blade poised precariously at his neck. But he was fast, faster than either of us had anticipated. With a sharp, instinctual movement, he deflected her sword with his katana, sparks flying wildly from the impact. Ha 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 ha! His laughter echoed through the forest, and I felt a sudden surge of irritation. Don't underestimate us, I thought fiercely. You're not bad at all, he said, sheathing his katana and crossing his arms over his chest. I'm Ignis, the Fire Dragon Lord and one of the Void Dragon's subordinates. So, this is Ignis, I thought, carefully assessing his posture. He's powerful, but we've faced worse. Chloe lowered our sword, her gaze unwavering. I'm Chronoa, the chosen hero. Ignis's smirk widened. A hero, huh? Interesting. Follow me. With that, he launched himself into the sky, his fiery aura blazing like a beacon against the canopy. Chloe didn't hesitate, and neither did I. The Void Dragon, I pondered deeply as we flew closely after Ignis. This mystery didn't exist in any of the past loops. What are we about to uncover? Whatever it was, Chloe's resolve was unwavering. We'll face it together. Always, I agreed, though a part of me remained deeply haunted by the ghosts of our past. As Chloe flew alongside Ignis, I felt the rushing wind against her skin and saw the breathtaking city of Ravenhelm unfold beneath us. How? Couldn't help but think. How is it that something this beautiful, this untouched, could exist when the world outside is completely falling apart? Chloe's thoughts echoed my own, her curiosity mingling with my baseline suspicions. She marveled at the city's structural perfection, while I immediately began analyzing its defenses and potential threats. The architecture, the citizens, they were all so entirely different from anything I had seen in my countless battles. But no place is perfect. No sanctuary is impenetrable. We've seen this before, I reminded her, a quiet whisper in the depths of her mind. She acknowledged my warning, her gaze hardening slightly as she observed the guards, the structures, and the civilians. Stay vigilant. Ignis spoke proudly of Ravenhelm's purpose and of the Void Dragon's absolute power, and I could feel Chloe's apprehension grow, an apprehension I fully shared. A fifth true dragon? The very concept gnawed at my sanity. Why hadn't we heard of him before? Why now? Was this just another massive anomaly in the timeline, or had he been hidden away for a specific reason? As we walked through the city streets, I couldn't help but feel a sudden pang of bitterness. If only we had known about this place sooner, about this dragon, maybe then, things could have been different. But regrets are entirely useless now. All that matters is what lies ahead. The palace was magnificent, a grand structure that radiated both flawless elegance and terrifying power. As we entered the back garden, I felt a strange chill settle over me, not just from the cold presence of the white-haired man named Frigidus, but from the crushing weight of the unknown. The Void Dragon wasn't here. Just when we were so incredibly close, he was gone. It felt like a cruel joke, another twisted despair in this endless loop. Frigidus's icy eyes fixed directly onto Chloe, and I could instantly sense his deep suspicion and wariness. He doesn't trust us, I thought, and Chloe silently agreed. But we're not here to cause trouble. Not yet. As Chloe requested to wait, I felt the tension in our shared body ease slightly when Frigidus nodded his silent approval. But my mind was far from calm. Waiting. Always waiting. How many battles did I fight? How many people did I lose? Simply because we waited too long. The memories of that final battle with Feldway suddenly flashed before my eyes. The utter hopelessness, the absolute devastation, and the exact moment he struck me down. I could still remember the terrifying coldness of his blade as it pierced my heart, the agony of feeling my life slip away. But even worse than the physical pain was the sight of Rimuru being swallowed by that endless void. His presence violently ripped from this world. The Chrono-Saltation, I will never, ever forget it. I failed. We all failed. And now, here I am, trapped in this strange half-life, forced to relive my failures through Chloe's eyes. But I won't let it end like that. Not again. As we sat in that garden, waiting for the Void Dragon's return, my mind kept replaying the events that had led us to this point. A fifth true dragon was another massive variable, another complex mystery to unravel in this already tangled web of fate. And what if? The thought came completely unbidden, dark and insidious. What if this Void Dragon isn't the ally we desperately need? What if he's just another enemy, another insurmountable obstacle in our path? Chloe could feel my growing unease and doubts, because she shared them completely. We were both so profoundly tired of fighting, tired of losing, tired of the endless loops and the constant suffocating sense of impending doom. But neither of us would ever give up. Not now. Not ever. As the sun began to set, casting long, dramatic shadows across the garden, I found myself whispering to Chloe again. We're close. Closer than we've ever been. But be careful. Trust no one, not even this dragon. We cannot afford any more mistakes. Chloe didn't respond with words, but I felt her resolve harden, her determination to see this through no matter the cost pulsing through our bond. We're in this together, Hinata. We'll find the answers we need. We'll save them all. And so we waited. For the Void Dragon. For the answers that might change everything. For the battle that was surely bound to come. The sound of Ignis's voice abruptly broke me from my thoughts. He was speaking casually with Frigidus, their words slightly muffled as my focus drifted. My eyes scanned the garden, its peaceful beauty feeling completely distant and irrelevant in the face of what we were about to confront. I desperately wanted to believe that Chloe's determination would carry us through, but the more I analyzed it, the more I doubted. We had seen so much destruction, failed so many times. What if this was just another dead end? What if the Void Dragon was as unattainable as everything else? The tension was building, becoming almost palpable in the air. I could feel it in Chloe's posture, the way her breathing had quickened just a fraction. I knew her well enough by now to recognize when her emotional resolve was being pushed to its absolute limit. But before I could dwell on it any further, the atmosphere around us violently shifted. My spiritual body tensed immediately as an absolute, crushing pressure weighed down on the air, causing the entire garden to become unnaturally still. I exchanged a rapid mental glance with Chloe, both of us instantly recognizing what was happening. Reality itself seemed to distort and crack as a literal tear in space opened in the middle of the garden, thick, dark mist swirling and pulling the ambient light into its depths. This is it. I swallowed hard, my ghostly fists instinctively clenching at my sides. Ignis and Frigidus immediately dropped to their knees in absolute reverence, their expressions locked in sheer awe. I didn't need them to confirm it. I could feel it myself. The sheer magnitude of power radiating from that spatial tier was unmistakable. The Void Dragon. I forced myself to keep my composure, though every single fiber of my being screamed to stand on guard. As the mist slowly parted and the figure stepped through, my breath completely hitched in my throat. His platinum silver hair gleamed beautifully under the fading sunlight, and his golden eyes, they pierced right through me, commanding a terrifying presence that sent violent shivers down my spine. For a brief, chaotic moment, my heart stuttered. There was something so painfully, agonizingly familiar about him. That aura. It was overwhelmingly powerful, yes, but beneath it lay something else. Something that made my chest tighten with instant recognition. I gritted my teeth tightly, fiercely fighting the flood of raw emotions that threatened to break my sanity. Chloe, however, wasn't nearly as composed. "Rimuru?" she whispered, her voice trembling violently. I saw the exact same sheer disbelief in her gaze that was currently creeping into my own heart. No, couldn't be. Could it? Before I could even process the thought, Chloe's body moved entirely on instinct. She dashed forward with blinding, godlike speed, her white mask slipping completely off her face as she crossed the garden in an instant. Ignis and Frigidus didn't even have time to register her movement. None of us did. And then, she collided directly into him. I blinked, completely stunned by the sheer, reckless force of her actions. Chloe's arms wrapped around him tightly, and I could feel her heart racing frantically, beating so hard against her ribs that it felt as though it might burst. She was clinging to him desperately, her raw emotions completely unrestrained. But I genuinely didn't know what to feel. Shock, utter disbelief, and a rising, desperate hope that I tried so incredibly hard to suppress. Is it really him? Then, she kissed him. My breath caught entirely in my throat, and for a moment my consciousness went completely numb. I didn't understand what was happening, what Chloe was doing, or what we were supposed to be feeling. But as I stood frozen within her mind, watching the scene unfold from the inside, my thoughts spiraled out of control. Chloe's emotions poured directly into me, a violent torrent of pure relief, overwhelming confusion, and something else. Something far deeper that I desperately didn't want to acknowledge. I wanted to look away, to completely distance myself from this madness, but I couldn't. I was trapped, fundamentally bound to her. As her lips firmly met his, I felt my entire world tilt wildly, a jolt of pure electricity shooting through my soul. Time seemed to stop completely, every thought and breath suspended in that singular moment. The warmth of his lips, the way they fit perfectly against hers. It was too much. It was too real. My mind screamed at me to make her stop, to pull away, to regain control of our physical senses. But Chloe's body wouldn't listen to me. Her emotions completely overwhelmed me, drowning out my logic. I could feel her heart hammering, her thoughts a chaotic whirlwind of relief, fear, and deep adoration. Damn it, Chloe. Rimuru. She whispered again, her voice barely audible over the sound of our rushing blood. The figure Rimuru, the void dragon, whoever he truly was, stared right back at her, pure confusion etched across his flawless features. His golden eyes softened for just a fleeting moment, a flicker of genuine recognition crossing his eyes. But then his expression changed. His familiar, playful tone suddenly returned, a mask of total confidence hiding whatever deep emotions had just stirred within him. Lost me? Ha 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 ha. Who do you think I am? The exact sound of his light-hearted laughter sent a sharp pang of familiarity straight through my soul, and I had to fight with everything I had to keep my composure. It's him. It's really, truly him. But something was entirely different. He wasn't the exact same Rimuru we had once known. This was the Void Dragon, a transcendent being of immense, absolute power. Something far beyond what we could have ever imagined. Chloe's complex emotions swirled violently inside me, a turbulent mix of intense hope and underlying fear. For the first time in a very long time, I felt completely lost. Was this truly our Rimuru? Or was it just a powerful shadow of the person he used to be? Rimuru's POV. As I stepped out of the spatial portal, the serene, familiar atmosphere of my garden greeted me. The sight of the stone pathways winding elegantly between flowering trees and tranquil ponds was supposed to ease my mind after my business. Yet something felt inherently off. A strange presence stirred in the air. It wasn't just Ignis or Frigidus waiting for me. This was different. It was familiar in a way that softly tugged at the very corners of my locked memories. Before I could fully assess the area, a blur of motion shot toward me with startling, incredible speed. A figure dashed at me far faster than I cared to react to in my own home. In the very next moment, I found myself flat on the ground, sitting awkwardly on my butt, blinking in absolute surprise as a pair of arms wrapped themselves tightly around me. I looked up, automatically about to summon my usual cool composure, but what met my eyes stopped me completely dead in my tracks. Chloe. The heavy weight of recognition hit me all at once. My former student, though former was an incredibly complicated word given the ridiculous time loops we'd both been through. Her eyes, wide and shimmering with a raw emotion I couldn't quite name, stared down at me with such immense intensity that it left me completely speechless. As I tried to process her sudden appearance, another detail caught my attention. We were close, far too close. Looking at her face from this distance, I realized she was breathtakingly beautiful. She had changed so much. The young girl I had once known in the academy was now a breathtaking beauty. Her features matured, her soft hair cascading like pure silk in the breeze, and her deep blue eyes holding a profound strength that mirrored the countless struggles she must have endured. She was radiant, almost painfully so, and her presence was undeniable. But as stunning as she was, something else demanded my immediate attention. She was pressed completely against me, every single part of her body. Her figure was pressing tightly against mine, her arms wrapping around me so firmly that I could feel every single curve, every inch of her warmth, her breath coming in uneven, ragged bursts. My mind, normally incredibly sharp and collected, momentarily short-circuited. I was just about to say something, maybe ask her how on earth she had managed to find this place. But before I could gather my thoughts or even move a muscle, she acted again. Her lips met mine in a sudden, entirely unexpected kiss. I completely froze. Time itself seemed to pause, my mind going completely blank as her warmth entirely enveloped me. It wasn't a long kiss, just a brief, intense connection, but it felt like an absolute eternity. My thoughts raced, my senses completely overwhelmed by her proximity. What are you doing? A heartbeat later, she slowly pulled away, her breath incredibly shaky and her gaze trembling, as if she herself couldn't believe what she had just done. Still clinging to me tightly, her voice was barely a soft whisper. I couldn't help it. You disappeared. Every time. Couldn't save you. Couldn't reach you. I thought I lost you forever. The raw, unfiltered emotion in her words cut straight through my defenses like a blade. Those words, her words, struck something incredibly deep inside my core. She had been out there fighting, suffering, and breaking herself, all while trying to save me and keep me from dying. A part of me wanted to deeply comfort her, so I gently patted her head to soothe her anxiety. But I knew I couldn't let the mood sink into total despair. That wasn't how I handled things. My lips quirked up into a familiar smirk, and I chuckled softly to break the ice. Lost me? Ha 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 ha. Who do you think I am? Her grip instantly tightened at my playful response, her eyes locking onto mine. She stared at me, a massive storm of conflicting emotions swirling within her blue eyes. I could feel her frustration, the way my lightheartedness clashed with the sheer gravity of her feelings. I tried to subtly avoid her direct gaze, but she absolutely wasn't letting this go. But I couldn't help it. This was my way of doing things. Even when faced with something so raw and vulnerable, I had to keep things light. It was how I survived. It was how I kept myself and the people around me from completely sinking into the darkness of their own thoughts. My laughter was meant to ease her heavy tension, to remind her of the Rimuru she knew. But as I stared into her eyes, the sheer intensity of her emotions bore straight into me. There was absolutely no room for playfulness in that moment. Her pain was real. I could see it now, clearly and vividly. Her voice trembled as she continued, I've been through countless loops. I've watched you disappear into the void again and again, and each time, I was completely helpless. But this time I'll save you. I don't care what it takes. A heavy lump formed in my throat as her words washed over me. I really wasn't expecting this. The crushing weight of her experiences, her endless suffering. It struck a chord deep within me. I hadn't fully realized how much I truly meant to her, or how far she had gone to try and pull me back from whatever fate had sealed me away. For a brief moment, I couldn't meet her gaze. It was simply too much, too raw. The vulnerability in her voice and stance was something I hadn't been prepared for. How could I be? I had become the Void Dragon. I had transcended my former self in ways she could never fully comprehend. Yet here she was, still seeing me as her mentor, her friend, her Rimuru. Slowly, I rose to my feet, carefully extricating myself from her tight hold, though I never let my eyes leave hers. The air around us felt incredibly heavy with unsaid things. There was so much I wanted to say, but the words completely escaped me. You always speak of things beyond my understanding, Chloe? I said softly, my voice trying to strike a delicate balance between the playfulness she expected and the gravity she desperately needed. But things are different now. It's not the same as before. She stood up as well, her posture firming up, though her emotions were still bubbling just beneath the surface. I'll explain my part. But first, her voice softened, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of deep uncertainty in her eyes. I need to know if you're still him. Are you still Rimuru? For a heartbeat, I hesitated. How could I easily explain the vast, cosmic difference between who I was and who I had become? The void had fundamentally changed me. I was no longer just the playful slime who sought simple peace and happiness for all those around him. I was more than that now. I had transcended mortality to become a being of unimaginable power. Yet, some part of me remained. I am the Void Dragon now, I said finally, my tone measured, though I couldn't suppress the small, reassuring smile that crept onto my lips. But some part of him still lingers. The heavy tension in the air remained, but her expression softened just a little. She needed to hear those words. I could see the profound relief in her eyes, even if the storm within her wasn't entirely quelled. There was still so much left unsaid between us, so much left unresolved. I stood up fully, casually brushing off the stray grass that clung to my clothes after Chloe had completely tackled me. The intensity of our encounter lingered, the phantom feeling of her kiss still fresh in my mind, but I firmly pushed the thought aside. There was no time to dwell on personal feelings. I glanced over at Ignis and Frigidus, who were standing nearby, their expressions a hilarious mix of utter confusion and complete surprise. They had instinctively prepared for battle when Chloe originally charged at me, but the sudden embrace and the kiss had left them completely stunned and speechless. I signaled for them to follow me, turning toward the gazebo nestled within the lush garden. The structure, delicate and intricate, was beautifully draped in hanging vines and blooming flowers, serving as a perfect small oasis of calm amidst the thick tension. As I walked, I could feel Chloe's presence following just behind me, her footsteps soft and slightly hesitant. She hadn't said much of anything since the kiss, and I could practically sense the weight of her embarrassment. Ignis and Frigidus trailed quietly behind us, casting furtive, curious glances at Chloe but remaining perfectly silent. Upon reaching the gazebo, I sank into one of the comfortable chairs, crossing my legs and getting relaxed. Chloe took her seat directly to my right, while Ignis and Frigidus settled on the opposite side, their expressions now more composed but still highly curious. I leaned back, folding my arms, and gave Chloe a gentle nod. She caught my gaze and took a deep, stabilizing breath, her hands nervously clasping together as she prepared to speak. "Rimuru-san," Chloe began, her voice soft but filled with immense emotion. Her eyes flickered with a mixture of old sadness and sharp resolve as she began recounting her story, one that stretched across countless lifetimes. It has been years since I traveled back in time, but the memories of that final battle against Feldway never fade. The devastation, the absolute despair, I can still feel it. And the worst part of it all was losing you, watching as you were torn away from us, sent straight to the end of time and space by that cursed Chrono-Saltation. Without you there, the world completely crumbled. The chaos, the destruction, it was entirely unbearable. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke, but she pushed through, her gaze becoming distant as though she were actively reliving those dark moments. We tried everything to stop him, Hinata, the Tempest executives, the remaining demon lords, but it wasn't enough. Malim and Velzard were placed completely under his control, and when the world-destroying dragon, Ivaraj, was released, it was over. Hinata, she died right in front of my eyes. I failed her entirely, and that failure caused another time loop. Chloe paused, her grip tightening on her own hands as if grounding herself through the phantom pain of those memories. This time, though, something was completely different. Hinata's soul came back with me into the past, and I made a strict promise to her and to myself that this time I would save you. I wouldn't let you disappear again. Her eyes locked onto mine, filled with the crushing weight of countless lifetimes of struggle. But this loop, it wasn't like any of the others. Things began to drastically shift. Luminous Valentine mentioned a fifth true dragon, a void dragon that had never existed in any of my previous loops. A dragon that had appeared only recently, living in a completely hidden forest called Ravenwood. I had to find out more, and when I finally did, Chloe's voice wavered slightly, but she pressed on, her gaze completely locked onto mine. I discovered it was you, Rimuru, the void dragon. You had completely changed your appearance, with platinum silver violet hair and golden eyes. But even with those drastic changes, I knew it was you. And when I saw you step out of that portal, I couldn't stop myself. I ran to you, so terrified you'd disappear into the void again. I kissed you before I could even think. She looked down at the table, her face heavily flushed with deep embarrassment, and I could sense her sudden wave of self-consciousness. The raw vulnerability in her words hung heavily in the air, unguarded and completely honest. I smiled slightly at her, though my heart was deeply conflicted. "Chloe," I said gently, my voice soft but completely steady. "You've done more than enough. You've fought so hard and endured so much pain. There's no need to push yourself to the breaking point any further. I've already made up my mind about exactly what needs to be done." She raised her head slowly, her blue eyes searching mine, desperately seeking some form of reassurance. I held her gaze, trying to convey a sense of absolute calm, though I knew the truth I was about to reveal would only add to the confusion she already felt. "You're completely free to live your life as you choose," I continued, my tone firm but inherently kind. "You and Hinata both. But I want the future to play out exactly as it did before, as closely as humanly possible. Changing too much right now could have massive, unintended consequences for the timeline." Chloe blinked in sheer surprise, clearly not expecting those words to come out of my mouth. She opened her mouth to argue, but hesitated, entirely unsure of what to say. Finally, she found her voice again. "But, Rimuru-san, why is this timeline so vastly different? Why are there so many new faces and entirely new powers? Did you know all of this from the very start?" Rimuru's POV. Her questions were entirely valid, and I sighed, leaning back in my chair as I stared up at the sky through the thick vines that draped over the gazebo's roof. The immense weight of the truth pressed heavily down on me, and I knew it was finally time to tell her everything. "I didn't know from the start," I began, my voice dropping its playful edge, becoming much more serious now. "After Feldway sent me to the end of time and space, I was trapped there, completely isolated in a void that stretched out endlessly. I had absolutely no sense of time, days, years, centuries. It all blurred together into nothingness. But eventually I found a way to force my return. I took the risk, fully knowing the cosmic dangers involved. But when I finally made it back, I found myself thrown 3,000 years into the past." I paused for a moment, carefully watching her expression as she tried to absorb the sheer enormity of what I was saying. "My soul was practically shattered in the process," I continued, my tone grim. "It was damaged beyond normal repair. If not for Veldanava finding me out there, I would have permanently died. He saved me, using ancient, primordial magic to reforge my very essence. I was reborn as the Void Dragon, but because of that, I'm not the exact same as I once was. I still have my core memories, but some of them are fragmented, blurred." Chloe's eyes widened in sheer shock, and I could feel the emotional tension rising between us as she tried to comprehend the trauma of my past. "This timeline," I continued, gesturing slightly to our surroundings, "is vastly different simply because I've already altered it just by existing here in the past. Ravenhelm, Ignis, Frigidus, they are all direct consequences of my actions and interference in this world. Some major events have played out exactly the same, but others have changed entirely." I looked directly at her, seeing the realization slowly dawn on her beautiful face. "I never intended to change too much," I said, my voice softening again to comfort her. "But I absolutely needed to prepare for what's coming. Feldway's plans are already in motion, and the release of the world-destroying dragon, Ivarage, is completely inevitable. But this time we'll actually be ready. I need you and Hinata to stand by my side again. We'll protect this world together, but we must tread carefully. The future is incredibly fragile." Chloe remained entirely silent for a long moment, her expression deeply conflicted but growing fiercely resolute. Finally, she gave a firm nod, her signature determination burning bright in her blue eyes. "I understand," she whispered, her voice filled with quiet conviction. "But I won't let you disappear again. Not this time. Never again." Her words hung heavily in the air, filled with an unwavering resolve that beautifully matched my own desires. I smiled softly at her, feeling a genuine sense of relief wash over my chest. "Don't worry," I replied, my voice incredibly gentle. "I'm not going anywhere this time." Third-person POV. The serene atmosphere of Rimuru's private garden beautifully enveloped the gazebo, casting a gentle, warm glow over the intricate structure draped in vibrant vines and fresh blossoms. Delicate petals danced lazily in the wind, their colors, lavender, crimson, and golden, blending harmoniously with the lush green canopy of the garden. The gazebo itself, perched elegantly at the center of a small, crystal-clear pond, radiated a profound sense of peaceful safety. Its arching, hand-carved pillars rose gracefully from the water, and the polished marble floor gleamed brightly under the soft sunlight that filtered through the ancient trees. The pristine water perfectly reflected the delicate flower arrangements floating atop the surface, while the gentle hum of the breeze and the distant, sweet song of birds gave the entire space a tranquil, almost ethereal beauty. The air was perfectly calm as Rimuru and Chloe sat within the gazebo, the peaceful scene before them acting as a stark contrast to the heavy turbulence of their recent conversation. Rimuru's posture was completely relaxed, a small, reassuring smile gracing his face as he watched Chloe, who was gradually regaining her baseline composure. Nearby, Ignis and Frigidus stood guard, their eyes casually scanning the picturesque surroundings. They, too, seemed completely at ease, thoroughly lulled by the natural beauty of the moment. But that hard-earned moment of absolute peace shattered abruptly. Suddenly, massive spheres of pulsating magicule energy violently flickered into existence right at the entrance to the garden, their dark, crackling presence instantly disturbing the serene air. The magicules swirled like a vicious vortex, tearing through the tranquil atmosphere like a sudden, violent storm on a calm sea. The abrupt, hostile change set everyone instantly on edge. Ignis and Frigidus tensed their muscles in a heartbeat, their massive auras flaring out wildly as they prepared themselves for immediate battle. Rimuru's relaxed, playful demeanor shifted instantly. His golden eyes narrowed dangerously as his godlike senses sharpened to a razor's edge. Chloe, however, was the absolute first to physically react, her face instantly twisting into an expression of pure, unadulterated fury. From within the dark, crackling spheres, a tall, imposing figure slowly emerged, a powerful presence completely concealed by layers of dense, pitch-black robes. The entity's face was hidden entirely beneath a deep hood that obscured its features, save for the faint, malevolent glow of eyes that burned like embers through the darkness. The very air around the figure visibly bent and distorted, rippling with an oppressive, ancient power that made the entire garden grow deathly cold and dark. Heavy tendrils of dark mist seeped out from beneath the robes, coiling and swirling around the ground like a living entity. This mysterious being radiated a suffocating aura, an energy so immensely heavy it made the very earth tremble beneath their feet. Chloe's breath caught sharply in her throat as her gaze locked tightly onto the intruder. Absolute recognition flared violently in her eyes, instantly followed by a surge of anger so intense it seemed to consume her entire being. Her fists clenched white-knuckled, and before anyone else could even react, she had already taken an aggressive step forward, the desperate desire to strike down the intruder burning wildly in her eyes. "You!" she hissed fiercely through clenched teeth, her voice trembling with pure, unmitigated rage. She was just about to dash blindly toward the hooded figure, her body radiating a dangerous, lethal intensity, when a firm yet incredibly gentle hand suddenly grabbed her wrist. Rimuru's grip was perfectly steady but not forceful, his familiar touch instantly acting to calm the violent storm raging inside her soul. Chloe completely froze in place, her chest heaving heavily as she actively struggled to contain her explosive emotions. She turned her head to look at him, her eyes practically swimming with fury and confusion, but Rimuru's calm, playful smile never once wavered. "Easy," Rimuru murmured softly, his voice low but deeply comforting as his golden eyes locked onto hers. "There's absolutely no need for that." Yet, Chloe stared deeply into his eyes, her erratic breathing slowly beginning to decelerate as his soothing presence washed completely over her. His grip on her hand was warm and profoundly reassuring, and slowly, the desperate anger in her chest began to subside. She took a compliant step back, though her sharp eyes remained fixed entirely on the figure, still burning with heavily restrained fury. Rimuru then turned his full attention toward the dark, hooded entity, his expression shifting smoothly from one of quiet calm to a wide, almost mocking grin. He leaned back slightly in his chair, his tone dripping with pure, playful mockery as he casually addressed the dangerous intruder. "Oh, what brings you here?" Rimuru's voice was light, almost teasing, as if he found the entire threat amusing. He crossed his arms over his chest, his grin widening significantly as he studied the robed figure with a casual, absolute confidence that completely belied the thick tension in the air. "You're not lost, are you?" The ominous figure remained perfectly silent for a tense moment, the only sound in the garden being the low, heavy hum of raw power that constantly radiated from its form. The atmosphere was incredibly thick with tension, as if the very world itself was holding its collective breath in anticipation of what would happen next. But Rimuru's incredibly playful tone seemed to carry a heavy, underlying message, a direct challenge, daring the hooded intruder to make the first move. And despite the suffocating pressure, there was an undeniable air of absolute control surrounding the young dragon. Rimuru, the void dragon, was simply not someone who could ever be intimidated. And the intruder, shrouded heavily in darkness, seemed to understand that fact very well.